We all make mistakes, this is a fact. But some mistakes are small and some are big. And then some are epic. Epic fails. And tonight we're taking a look at an epic fail of a nautical variety. The one that happened in the 17th century in Sweden. That's right, tonight we're taking a look at Sweden's epic fail, the sinking of the Vasa. August 10th, 1628, Stockholm, Sweden. It would not be a red letter day for the Swedes on this particular day. Well, maybe not so much a red letter day, but it would not be forgotten. It just wouldn't be for awesomeness. On this day, the Swedes would launch one of their biggest ships that they've ever constructed. It was called the Vasa. This 64-gun flagship would be the envy of the Swedish Navy, or so it would seem. Look, there have been many disastrous shipwrecks throughout the ages. Let's think of some of them off the top of my head, right? The running aground of the cruise ship Costa Concordia in 2012. The 1963 implosion of the nuclear-powered attack submarine, the USS Thresher. And of course, the well-known sinking of the RMS Titanic in 1912. All these were big disasters of a nautical variety, but you have to add the Vasa sinking in 1628 to the top of that list as well. This ship took years to build, a lot of planning by several architects and many artisans that spent their life's work building the ornamentation of this ship that was really unrivaled anywhere else in Europe.
You're welcome, Stockholm.
The ship was expensive too, to the tune of 200,000 Swedish royal dollars. And at the time, that was something like 5% of the GNP of Sweden.
Shut up and take my money.
So this ship was a royal mandate by Gustav Adolphus, the King of Sweden at the time. Now, you have to think about Sweden being on the doorstep of major power. They needed to have a flagship that really showed their muscle, right? To really get out there and show everybody that they also were a power of the seas, because in the army, they were doing and holding their own in the 30 Years' War all across Europe. They were gaining momentum every step of the way, but they needed a flagship that said, hey, look at us.
Give her 2 tickets to the gun show.
So the story is a little bit confusing in the sense that who was in charge of building this thing? You had the royal mandate to build it, you had hundreds and hundreds of people put it together, but you had an architect that saw it halfway through and then died, unfortunately, and another guy came in to finish the job. A lot of discussion about what needed to be done, and a lot of changing from the width to the length and the top of the ship itself. All this led to a beautiful ship, but really unseaworthy in many respects. It was said that the crew itself knew that something was amiss here, because they would take these normal sort of runs at the ship where they would stay on one side of the ship and run to the other side, width to width to width, to get the ship to kind of go back and forth to see if it had really the right ballast to do so. And they were all scared to death. This thing was not looking so great. It was way too top heavy. And you can tell that there was something foreboding that was going to happen when the real launching was going to occur in 1628 on that August day. So if you're one of these guys knowing this ship is not built to take the sea, who are you going to talk to? You're going to talk to the king? Not me, and not them. Nobody told the king that this thing was not going to do well. So by the time August 10th rolls around, it was going to be an anxious time for a lot of people.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
And Captain Solfrig Hansen orders the ship to be launched and head out to the Sound. And at this point, things seem to be okay. Everyone in Stockholm is waving and really taking a bankside viewpoint of this majestic ship going out. So this is where it all goes to hell. The sails are unfurled, right? The gun ports are opened on one side, and as customary, they're going to fire these guns and salute to the crowds in Stockholm on this maiden voyage, this test voyage, if you will. So as they're doing that, they open up the gun ports, the wind starts blowing in from the southwest and fills and billows up the sails with air. Now the ship sort of goes and recoils back forward, and the water starts coming in through the gun ports. I guess you can see how this is all going to work out. It's going to go bad really quickly. Okay, so I gave a lot of the story away already, but I think it'd be best to give a fuller sort of viewpoint of this story by taking you on a field trip to Stockholm, Sweden, and to the Vasa Museum, one of the most visited museums in all of Stockholm. It's because it houses the Vasa itself. That's right, we're going to take a look at the remnants of the Vasa from 1628. Across the harbor, past access takes you to one of the most visited attractions in all of Scandinavia, welcoming over 1 million visitors a year. With its distinctive 3 masts, the design of the Vasa Museum starts to pique our interest as to what history is housed inside. The lines are usually long, but you're with us today, so we'll just breeze right on through. There is a wow factor as your eyes adjust to the darkened surroundings and see the immense structure of this early 17th century flagship of war. It's the Vasa, and on its maiden voyage in 1628, it slipped beneath the waves to sleep at the bottom of the harbor for nearly 3.5 centuries. So August 10th, 1628, on its maiden voyage, Vasa went off not too far, right around the corner here from the Vasa Museum today in 2019, and foundered, went right over. Light breeze had basically did some damage enough to kind of move the ship over because it was too top heavy. The ballast wasn't enough. The design failure really was its downfall, and it sunk. And because it sunk, it went about 30 meters or so down to the bottom of this sound here, and there it rested until 1961. This epic fail became a historic gift for modern-day eyes, for the simple reason that if the Vasa was successfully built to be seaworthy, there would be no example of a ship from this era in this condition. Discovered and raised from the depths in 1961, this enormous jigsaw puzzle of a ship was reassembled piece by piece and has been continuously treated against decay and deterioration. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. You see, the Vasa was a warship and a political power statement all rolled up into one. King Gustav Adolphus II of Sweden needed to build up an already depleted Swedish navy, and he needed a flagship. The construction of the Vasa was plagued by several setbacks, expedited time constraints, and the age-old fear of speaking truth to power. All this produced a ship ill-prepared for seafaring. So when you get down to the very bottom level of the Vasa Museum, you'll see that near the keel, I'm actually underneath the bow right now, but near the keel, you get a really good idea of the enormity of this ship. It is said that this took over 1,000 oaks to build. You can imagine oak is a wonderful wood, but back in the day it was also very rare in the sense of using it for a lot of ships. Sweden was having a hard time with their, we call it today a space race, but it was a naval race with all their competitors, and they didn't have enough ships. It was said actually that if you were to use as an average person several oaks to build your house, you could actually be executed. 3 oaks equaled execution. So people wanted to use the oaks for the ships only. So you might be asking yourself, if this ship is made of indestructible oak, how in the world did it sink? That's a great question, and the answer is very, very interesting, and we have that for you right now. Here's the breakdown. The ship was designed top-heavy, too tall with a much too narrow hull, so that no real amount of heavy ballast could keep the ship afloat in basic sailing conditions. These concerns were known, but it was too late to back out. The king needed his ship and needed it now. At 4 p.m. on August 10th, 1628, the Vasa set sail to much local fanfare. A catastrophe was about to play out. As customary, the Vasa would fire her guns and salute, so the cannon gunports were opened. A light wind began to fill the sails, and the ship tipped to one side, allowing for the sea to rush in through the already low gunport openings, thus flooding the ship. In a mere minutes, the Vasa began to founder and sink, taking with her 53 souls and Sweden's shipbuilding reputation. Flash forward to 1961. The recently discovered location of the Vasa was about to culminate in a centuries-long reveal to the 20th century. The Vasa slowly made her way to the surface and was immediately kept wet to avoid drying out and splintering. The conservation would continue for decades to come.
So spraying it with water was the first step. Then quite soon after that, they could change and start using a conservation liquid, which was water mixed with something called PEG, polyethylene glycol. And that was done for a long, long time. The ship was sprayed with this PEG liquid for 17 years. Day and night, continuously, in the interior, on the outside. But today, no more spraying is done. In this museum today, we focus on the air, the climate inside the building. So what we have is a special climating system that keeps the balance when it comes to the temperature and the humidity inside the building to make sure that we have the best possible conditions for the wood for the ship.
Inside the museum, there's not a bad place to view the spectacular ship. It is easy to lose yourself in this museum, as every turn has something interesting to tell about this tragedy, including the forensics reimagining of the lives lost. Prepare to spend several hours to comb through this one-of-a-kind museum that showcases the thousands of man-hours spent to create the Vasa nearly 400 years ago, and the Herculean efforts of modern-day historic conservationists that allow us an unparalleled look back in time. All right, so there you have it. That was at Vasa Museum in Stockholm, Sweden. I always love going to that museum. I think I've been there like 4 or 5 times on my visits to Stockholm, and it's worth it. Really, you need to see it. But it really kind of gives you an idea about what had happened and the efforts to put it together and conserve it for future generations to see the Vasa. But what really happened after this epic fail? Wouldn't heads have to roll? Would there be an inquiry? Yeah, of course there would be. But the main architect had died, remember, during this process, so we can't bring him to trial. The second guy was blaming the first guy on the whole thing. But really, the buck stopped at the desk of the king. Are you going to tell the king that he did it wrong by not really overseeing this thing the correct way and not crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's? Not me. I'm not going to tell that guy. And that's basically what everybody else did. They just said, okay, teachable moment. We'll move on from this. There'll be better training. There'll be better designs coming across the board and better testing. Okay. So really, who was to blame? Well, there was a lot of blame to go around, but no one was really going to be responsible for taking that blame. So they kind of closed the books. Done and done. Teachable moment. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, the takeaway is the epic fail that happened in 1628 is actually our gain in the 21st century. Without that epic fail of it sinking on its maiden voyage due to poor design and seafaring capabilities, we wouldn't have this amazing ship that was conserved for so many years since the 1960s and put into this amazing museum in Stockholm. But we actually have the evidence of seeing this amazing ship that you can actually get almost close enough to touch in Stockholm. So a failure in 1628 is our gain in 2020. So before we wrap up the program tonight, I have to honor a promise that we made a few programs ago, that after every third or fourth show or so, we're going to do the Wheel of Destiny, where you, the viewer, get to write into the show and tell us what kind of genre you want us to pursue as far as the next topic. And if you're one of the earlier emails that come through and we spin the wheel and it falls on your genre, we get to pick your topic. So let's take a look at the Wheel of Destiny, spin it, and see which viewer gets to have his or her show premiered on DYK. All right, so here we go. Spin, spin, spin. Okay, and it looks like it's gonna land on culture. All right, culture, let's take a look at who sent in the email about the genre of culture. All right, so we have culture as our genre. Let's take a look at the emails that we have here, and under the culture issues, we've got a guy named David Hayes from Toronto, Canada. I assume Canada, of course. And David wants DYK to show an episode on Vincent van Gogh. All right, David, that looks like a great show idea for a topic on Vincent van Gogh under culture and art, I would assume. Done deal. That's our next homework assignment for DYK. We're going to talk about Vincent van Gogh. We want to thank you for joining us on DYK, Past Access DYK here from Prague. We have wonderful shows coming up for you here in 2020. You've already seen a few already on the Marshall plane crash, the execution of Prague, and of course, this episode on the sinking of the Vasa as an epic fail. So stay tuned, there'll be a lot of more great shows coming up. If you want some more information, you can go to our website at pastaccess.com. It is right here. Take a look right there, pastaccess.com, and take a look at some of the shows we've got. We also have shows on my disabled travel through the Europe and Asia, and a few other places in between. You can take a look at those if that really strikes your fancy. We do a lot of things here on Past Access. So until next time, for Past Access DYK from Prague, I'm Pete Coleman. Have a good night, everyone.
This has been Past Access Did You Know with Pete Coleman. For more information on this topic or other DYK shows, please visit us at pastaccess.com. Be sure to visit our Past Access YouTube channel, like and subscribe.